Tips with Carl, presented by Norfield. Today, we're going to be working on a Model 1020 double-end trim saw, and we're going to be rebuilding the feed, start, and return valves, which are located here. Alright, so we're going to be rebuilding the feed, start, and return valves on the Model 1020. The one closest to us is the feed return valve with the spool pointing toward the operator. The one in the back with the plunger pointing toward the back of the machine is the feed start valve. Start by removing the 4 bolts around the plunger and remove the plunger. I'm using a 7/64 Allen wrench. And there's the spool from the feed return valve. And we're going to slide the feed assembly back to give us some clearance. We're going to remove the 4 bolts from the feed start valve and remove the plunger from that valve. Because the valve is recessed back in there, it's necessary to use the pliers to give you a little extra leverage to get the bolts to come loose. Once you get them broke loose, then you don't need the pliers anymore. And there's the plunger from the feed start valve. Alright, so we have the spools from the feed start and return valves. First thing we're going to do is remove the old O-rings. If you cut the O-rings like this, it's not only easier to remove the O-ring, but also we can't confuse it with one of the new O-rings and inadvertently install a used O-ring. I'm going to open the rebuild kit available from Norfield. Each rebuild kit comes with 2 gaskets, 5 O-rings, a spring, and a couple of pins. For these valves, we are not going to need the spring, the pins, or the gaskets. There are 5 O-rings, but we need 6, so we're going to have to open a second kit. The springs we're going to retain because we're going to reuse those when we do the saw valves. So I'll open a second kit, get our 6th O-ring. The pins, the gaskets, can be discarded as they will not be needed. We'll save all of the extra O-rings and the springs for later. Install the O-rings on the spools. Do not use any metal tools to force the O-rings on, as the metal tools could possibly damage the O-ring. So then we will apply a small amount of key lube grease, also available from Norfield, to pre-lube the valves. Try to get that on all of the O-rings. Spools are ready to reinstall. So we're ready to reinstall the spool in the feed start valve. It's already pre-lubed and ready to go. Just insert it. There's no spring, there's no gasket. It also doesn't matter which valve we put the spool in because both of these valves are identical. Place the square plate. I use the pliers again to tighten the bolts. Being careful not to over tighten them. Okay, we're ready to reinstall the spool in the feed return valve. Again, there are no springs, no gaskets. Simply slip the spool into the valve body, put the plate over it, and install the 4 bolts. The feed start and return valves are done.